Hello friends, today we are going to discuss the freedom from fear versus the freedom from want and beyond. In the human security, freedom from fear and freedom from wanted and beyond. This is a new concept in the human security. So let's discuss the freedom from fear versus the freedom from wanted and beyond. In an ideal world, each of the UNDP, United Nations Development 7 categories of threats would receive adequate global attention and resources. Yet, attempts to implement this human security agenda have led to the emergence of the two major schools of thought on how to be best practice human security: freedom from fear, freedom from want. While the UNDP, United Nations Development 1994 report originally argued that human security requires attention to both freedom from fear and freedom from want, division have gradually emerged over the proper scope of that protection, over what threats of individuals should be protected from, and over the appropriate mechanisms for the responding to these threats. Freedom from fear. This school seeks to limit the practice of human security to protecting individuals from violent conflicts while recognizing that these violent threats are strongly associated with poverty, lack of state capacity, and other forms of inequalities. This approach argues that limiting the focus of violence and realistic and negotiable approach towards human security, emergency assistance, conflict prevention, and resolution, peace building are the main concern of this approach. Freedom from want. The school advocates his holistic approach in achieving the human and natural disaster because they are inseparable concepts in addressing the root of human insecurity, and they kill far from people than war. Genocide and terrorism combined. Different from freedom from fear, it expands the focus beyond violence with emphasis on development and security goals. Despite their differences, these two approaches to human security can be considered complementary rather than contradictory. Expression to this effect include: number 1 point, Franklin D. Roosevelt famous Four Freedoms speech of 1941, in which freedom from want is characterized as the third and freedom from fear is the fourth such fundamental universal freedom. The point number 7, the government of Japan considers freedom from fear and freedom from want to be equal in developing Japanese foreign policy. Moreover, the UNDP 1994 called for the world attention to both agendas. Point number 3, Shirin Pitsuan, current Secretary General of Asian cities, theorists such as Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, and Hume to conclude that human security is the primary purpose of organizing a state in the beginning. He goes on to observe that the 1994 Human Development Report states that it is reviving this concept and suggests that authors of the 1994 Human Development Report may be alluding to Franklin D. Roosevelt Four Freedoms of Speech, and without literally citing this presentation. Although freedom from fear and freedom from want are the most commonly referred to categories of human security practice, and increasing the number of alternative ideas continue emerge on how to best practice of human security among them. Point number 4, J. King and C. Mayuri. King and Mayuri try to narrow down the human security definition to one's expectation of years of life without experiencing the state of generalized poverty. In their definition, the generalized poverty means falling below critical threshold in any domain of well-being. It is in the same article they give brief review and categories of domains of well-being. This set of definitions is similar with the freedom from want, but more concretely focused on some value system. Caroline and Thomas regards human security is describing a condition of existence which entails basic material needs, human dignity, including meaningful participation in the life of community and an active substantive notion of democracy from the local to the global. Roland Paris. He argues that many ways to define human security are related with a certain set of values and lost the natural position, so he suggested to make security as the category of research. As such, he gives metrics to illustrate the security studies. So, security for whom and what is the sources of the security threat? Security whom, first point is states. Security for whom, first point is state. Second point is military. Military and non-military both. States, national security convention and realist an approach to security studies. And redefine security, environmental and economic cooperative and comprehensive studies. Societies, groups of and individuals, entrusted security, civil war, ethnic conflicts and domestic. Human security, environmental and economic threats to the survival of the societies and group of individuals. So, there is a one structure here we are showing you. Look at this structure. This is the main structure of security for whom and what is the sources of the security threat. So, kindly look it up. Security for whom and what is the sources of security threat. So, these are the structure. So, now let us start another discussion, that is Sabina El-Khairi. Different with those approaches seek to narrow down and specific objective of human security. Sabina El-Khairi pushes the idea a step further as to safeguard the vital core of human lives from the critical perspective threats without impending long-term human fulfillment. In a concept as such, she suggests the vital core cover animal or basic fundamental set of functions related to survival, livelihood and dignity to all institutions should at least necessarily protect the core from any intervention. Now, we are going to discuss another one, that is the Canadian approach of human security. The Canadian approaches argues that at a minimum, human security requires that basic needs are met, but it also acknowledges that sustained economic development, human rights and fundamental freedoms, the rule of law, good governance, sustainable development and social equity are important to the global peace as arms control and disarmament. It recognizes the link between the environmental degradation, population growth, ethnic conflict and migration. Finally, it concludes that lasting peace cannot be built until the human security is guaranteed. Here, it needs to be noted that terms like basic needs, good governance and so on are contested issues. Hence, their precise importance remains vague and unclear. What is common between the UNDP, United Nations Development, the Canadian approaches to human security? Both reject the focus of the state security with varying degrees of emphasis, whilst annotating the human security as their central concern. Both stress the need to ensure the well-being of citizens, their personal freedom and safety from direct and indirect threats, which can equally emanate from the state or society. On the other hand, there are divergences between the two approaches, that is, UN development privileges in the individual over the state, whilst the Canadian approaches gives importance to the state, whilst according to primary to human security. The UNDP emphasizes the threats from indirect violence as from environmental factors. The Canadians highlight the dangers of direct violence from the domestic and social and also the global factor. The UNDP, United Nations Development, believes that human security can be achieved by promoting human development through greater democratization of global society. The Canadians' law emphasizes on political development, global norms and the collective use of forces and sanctions. So, these are the discussion. If you like the video, share it and like it. Thank you.